Hello and welcome back to Vegas Aces. My name is Heather Ferris and I'll be your host for today. On this live stream, we are joined with our special guest, Michael. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Basically, I am a travel loyalty person is my true love, travel loyalty and casino loyalty. But of course, I love talking about specifically Vegas travel and this topic, especially like tips on booking your travel. Some of it is targeted towards Vegas, but some of it is just targeted to like how you approach things. And one of the things that I've tried to do over the years at TravelZork and on the TravelZork Facebook group, and also at LVA Travel, which is a travel section of Las Vegas Advisor, is we try to talk a lot about broad concepts to like educate you. Like if you learn this is going to really help you. So, and I always find that that's the best technique to really get people to learn how to book travel properly and also how to use miles and points properly is to give them, point them to the tools that are going to really help them, and also give a little bit of a broad understanding of what's going on because
Okay.
I hate to say it, but most of it is not black and white at all. Sort of similar to the way, I would say a lot of your audience is very familiar with casino loyalty and casino comps. And a lot of that isn't that black and white all the time either. So you need to understand the nuance of a lot of that.
If people are interested in more information, what website can they go to? What's your social media links? Where can they find you?
Sure. It's really easy. Almost everything is at TravelZork. I'm on Twitter quite a bit. We also have a Facebook group. I have a podcast called Zorkcast. We also have a YouTube channel, which is also TravelZork. So everything basically is TravelZork. I'm pretty easy to get in contact with, and we tend to be pretty responsive. We do a lot of these kind of conversations in the Facebook group. And I think part of it, because you were at Zorkfest when we did our like conference in Vegas, a lot of it is trying to bring together the casino people and the travel people, sort of like have those worlds collide. And those are my favorite worlds to have collide are the travel people and the Vegas people, learning from each other.
Thank you so much for being on and for doing this and for sharing your expertise and everything. And for people who are watching, what we're going to be doing today is the top 5 tips for traveling to Las Vegas. So I am really, really excited about this. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind you to subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that way you're always notified of our latest videos and live streams. If you're brand new to this channel and this is your first time here, again, my name is Heather Ferris and I'm the founder of Vegas Aces. I'm also an adjunct professor at UNLV, a content creator, consultant, and I've been involved with the casino industry for over 15 years. I created Vegas Aces to help people learn how to play and deal casino table games. And as a way to give back to our community, we offer a free dealing trade school where we help place dealers at no cost. Now on with the show. So, Michael, what is tip number 1 for people to know when they're traveling to Las Vegas? Does it have something to do with airfare?
Yeah, it always does, right? A lot of conversation always comes down to airfare and finding the best airfare. And that is never an easy question to answer, especially when you're talking about what we call like revenue airfares, when you're buying your airline ticket and also potentially using your miles and points for an airline ticket. Broad stroke, one thing that you really want to learn to use is Google Flights, because you can set up alerts and you can sort of see the entire big picture of what the airfares are between the markets that you're interested in. Okay. So I think you'll be listing some of the links. Gilbert of God Save the Points has a great article on Google Flights, and you really want to start to understand what the airline pricing looks like for your market. Now, the positive end of that kind of thing is that usually most people live in only one or two places. So you become very familiar with like what it costs to fly from New York to Vegas or from Minneapolis to Vegas. You become familiar with the airlines. You also become familiar with the historical prices. Because there's a lot of things that people will say sometimes, like buying your airline ticket 11 months in advance is the best thing to do. And that's not always true. There actually tends to be a sweet spot on buying tickets for, and this, unfortunately, some of this is more pre-COVID advice because now the world is upside down with COVID. So a lot of these rules are sort of shifted a little bit just because the airlines are in distress.
Will you talk about some of the shift too before we move on?
Sure, absolutely. But basically, there is usually buying too early or too late is not good. So there's almost a sweet spot in which the airlines start to promote the airfares. Just so people understand, all airlines have what we call fare buckets, and they have multiple pricing throughout the flight, and they only assign so many seats to every price bucket. And that's how, and then they also can lower the prices within those buckets. The biggest shift now with COVID is that airlines are trying to do whatever they can possibly do to fill airplanes, just because the demand is not there because of COVID for understandable reasons. A lot of people don't feel you really should be traveling for leisure right now. That obviously is a topic that has been covered by many people. So setting aside, personal opinions on that, there happens to be fewer flights, but the flights are still, even when they're full, where you would traditionally have a plane that was 60-70% full, where they would start raising the airfares, a lot of times they aren't because they just want to keep selling the seats. So now is a great time to look for airfares and to book airfares, especially frequent flyer award tickets, and especially because most airlines have extremely generous policies now with canceling or changing your flights. I will caveat that with that all of this has been changing, but now, historically, the airlines have never been as flexible and generous as they are when you want to cancel a trip. And usually the worst case scenario is that you wind up with a credit for that airline that you can use at a later date. Whereas before, you used to have non-refundable tickets where if you canceled them, it was $150 penalty per ticket or things like that. So I do think forward-thinking travel, it's really smart now to start looking at when you think you're going to be comfortable to travel and booking those reservations, paying a careful attention to the terms and conditions. But you know what? In most cases, you're going to be able to change them. Now, remember, an airline will always tell you can, even though they'll say there's no fee to change a ticket, remember there might be a fare class difference. So if you paid $200 for a ticket and you want to change it, and on the date that you want to change it to, the flight's now going up to $280, you're going to have to pay the fare differential. The other thing is a lot of times airlines change their schedules, or they cancel flights, especially now because they've been changing, shifting things. Usually when an action happens in which an airline does something like changing the schedule or canceling the flight, then you usually can get your money back. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing to consider. And this is a tip I hadn't even put on your list, is one of the most amazing things that can happen with an airline is sometimes you will find the cheapest airfare as a connection, and you'll take it because you'll save the money. And like flying from, I don't know, Newark to Houston to Vegas, if it's going to save you $100 a ticket, it's a good value proposition, even till it takes you a couple more hours. Well, if you've booked that ticket really far in advance, there does become a chance that the schedule will change. And if the schedule changes enough, in most cases, this is a broad stroke comment, airlines will allow you to change to a different flight for no charge, and it has nothing to do with the pricing. So there are certain circumstances, if you live in a hub, and I'm making up this example on the fly, where you live and you fly on United out of Newark, and you are on a connection through Houston or Cleveland to Las Vegas, and they significantly changed the schedule where now the connection was going to cause you to be in Houston for 6 hours. They often will let you change to a better connection, or they might let you change to the Newark to Las Vegas nonstop flight. which you originally wanted to buy, but was more expensive. So that's also something, it never hurts to ask. So I always tell people, when you book tickets far out in advance, these schedule changes can really help you because you can wind up with the more expensive ticket that you didn't want to buy. But now airfares are fantastic. So I really think people should look forward to, 2021. I also think, I don't encourage people to like book tons of trips that they have to change or might not take. But I also think philosophically, it's such a happy thing to plan a vacation to Vegas. So even if you're not comfortable now and you think you're not going to be comfortable for 6 months, well, then go plan one for next October. Find a good fare and do it, because you know what? You're probably never going to have airfares as good as they are now, or the ability to use your miles and points where they're.
YouTube is YouTube. So a lot of people might be watching this 5 years later, like, COVID, what are you guys talking about? Come on. It's like so old school. Get with the times.
Exactly. But, learning to use, things like Google Flights are great because you get a really good overview. You have to realize a couple of things. Sometimes all the low-cost carriers and like Southwest are not always listed in Google Flights, so you're going to want to check those. Another thing that I always tell people, and this is really brushing into the subject like rather briefly, is you've got to add up all your fees when you buy an airline ticket, right? So like how Southwest always includes checked bags. It depends on how you travel, whereas like Spirit charges for larger carry-on bags. Spirit charges for checked bags. So you've got to be really careful because the fare might be lower, but by the time you add a checked bag or a carry-on bag or other things, it might actually be more expensive, and that's also an interesting thing to look at. I'm assuming that a lot of people who watch this don't travel that much that they have airline status. And if you don't have airline status, that stuff becomes really important to pay attention to. What will my bag fees be? What will, all of that. And sometimes another tip, I didn't even put this one on the chart either, is there's discounted first class fares, which, they could be really, really good. Like if say the regular fare is $150 each way or $110. It depends on what the differential is. Sometimes you'll pick up a first class fare that's $200 each way or $250 each way. But the first class fare will also include 2 bags. So, things like that and priority security and stuff like that. So if you don't have status, sometimes, finding a really good first class fare will allow you to get some of the other perks, and also gets you drinks in flight and alcohol and things like that. So that could be, so it's hard you can't put everything in one bucket, because for some people, if they have no status, those additional perks are very valuable. Whereas if you have status with an airline, you might get free checked bags already. So if I have status, I could bring on my snake Shiva and have her sit in the middle like chair. Yeah, sure.
The person next to her would love that.
No, I know.
She's my emotional support snake. I cuddle with the snake. I need her. So she has to be on that trip with me.
Okay. Well, we need to do what we need. Well, another interesting thing as a side note, which I was looking at recently, I don't know where you came, but you've got
I saw someone do that with a peacock, or it was some ridiculous animal or something. They're like, I need it because it's my emotional support animal. Oh. So I had to say that with my snake.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Another thing I don't know how much you've discussed this much is like people like bringing your dogs to Vegas hotels. I know this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but I was recently investigating some of that because when we've come to California for a couple months and I have my dog and I was like, is it worth it bringing the dog when I go to Vegas? And I was finding interesting differentials in the hotel policies, whereas like some hotels would charge for your entire stay for the dog and some would charge on a daily basis. And I think that's a really interesting thing, when you're starting to compare, like, is it worth it to bring your dog, or like how can you do it cost effectively? Have you looked into any of that or discussed that at all? I was curious because you would seem like someone who might touch into that.
So when I worked at the Westin Carcerina, which is right behind the Cromwell and the Flamingo, I was the dealer there, and one of the NYPD Blue actors, Richard Balthazar or something, I think his name was. I forget the name, but he would come in there and he would bring his dog because they allow dogs and everything. And because he was such a big actor, they actually allowed the dog to run around the casino floor. So the dog was like running in between my legs, running in between the tables, running under the craps table. It's like, what are you doing under the craps table? So I know some casinos allow dogs. I don't know what the prices are or anything, because that's one of the perks of living here. So
well, it is what is interesting, and just as a side note, and maybe mentioning this before we get into talking about hotels, if you do want to bring your dog with you, it's really important to pay attention to the rules. And off the top of my head, I was looking at, I can get comped a pet stay room at Paris, and I can get comped a pet stay room at Caesars, but Paris charges $50 a day. And Caesars charges, it was like 75 a stay. So, or something like that. So I was like, so you'd be much better off. And I was like, this is so strange, because of course they're both Caesars properties. And I'm pretty sure I'm correct about this. But my main point was, like, if you're staying for 5 or 6 nights, it might make a huge difference which hotel you stay at, because if the pet fee is for the entire stay, as opposed to a per night basis, So I had never looked at that before, but I thought that was sort of interesting to pay attention to, because when I stayed at Caesars in June for the reopening of the casinos, I noticed a lot of dogs at Caesars. And they're really cute. I mean, I happen to love dogs, so it totally doesn't bother me at all. But I'm just always laughing when I see like the dogs with people in the lobby and stuff like that. But anyway, it made me sort of start to think about, like, what fees are they charging? And I was thinking, this is probably really smart for the hotels, because like it could take, actually, if I had a comp room, it's a nice extra fee for them to get. And I don't think it's really costing them that much.
But before we go into hotels, I just want to say to viewers out there, if you guys are liking this, if you're watching this and you like this video and you want to help support Vegas Aces, please remember to tip your dealer. And now you can with Super Chat. Super Chat is a way YouTube allows you to show your appreciation by tipping me any amount you want. Give it a try, or show your support by becoming a member of our Patreon page. We have several different levels and rewards for you to choose from. Any membership level counts, even $1. So please go join today. Okay, so part 2. Let's do hotels. I'm looking forward to hotels. So,
well, let's see. The number one big thing that always comes up when talking about hotels is resort fees, right? Like, especially in the Las Vegas market. And they've creeped out of Las Vegas a little bit, but it's definitely something that you have to be aware of when you're doing your price comparisons. And especially when you're doing price comparisons on a lot of travel websites, sometimes the resort fee is included in the final price in the taxes and fees. Sometimes it isn't. And there's just a little asterisk which says the property will be adding this fee. So that's super important that you're aware of it, because obviously we know some of these resort fees are quite high, and you might think you got a incredible deal for a hotel, but that rate they quoted you, the final quote, didn't take into account the resort fee, whereas maybe another website has. So you need to be super cautious about that. You also
real quick, with COVID, some of the casinos dropped their resort fees, and then some of them added the resort fees back on. So it really just depends on what casino you go to at the moment right now too.
Right. And I would say, I know some people, you are made aware of the resort fees. And I know there are some people who say, I just refuse to pay it, or I complain about it or something. It is something to potentially bring up if you don't get the services, or, there are ways for them to be discounted. I mean, for casino players, it's pretty decent, because though anybody with status at Caesars properties as a tier benefit get waived resort fees. This is one reason why I am a very positive person about Caesars rewards for people who can figure out a way to get diamond status, because diamond status as a tier benefit waives resort fees. Whereas if you want to look in comparison to M Life, Gold, or Platinum, they do not waive resort fees as a tier benefit. Now, of course, a host can waive the resort fees, or you can get a casino offer with waived resort fees. But I really like what Caesars does with making it a benefit. So just like the benefit where you can use the diamond line for check-in or use the lounge, they've codified it as a benefit. If you get that tier, you don't pay a resort fee, and it's transparent and it's easy. And I think that is quite an advantage of their program.
Some of the other tiers, or some of the other diamond tier perks that you get is free parking, one free dinner every year, and it's like you can have like $100 dinner and everything. Free show tickets once a month, which I think they might have changed, so you might have to double check that due to COVID.
Well, I can give you the free show ticket update right now because I just checked 2 weeks ago. What they're doing now is they're giving you free tickets for the high roller. They give you 2 free tickets for the high roller, which I believe can be used anytime. They print a voucher for you at the Caesars Rewards desk, and they're letting you go to the show Bodies. I think it's an exhibit, Bodies at Bally's.
Have you ever been there? Have you ever done that?
I haven't, and I want to. And that's now a diamond. So they're giving diamond Bodies, and they're giving you 2 tickets to Bodies, and they're giving you the high roller, which is actually and it's not a to the best of my knowledge, it's not a buy one, get one for the high roller. So you actually get 2 high roller tickets. So that's what they're doing in lieu of the shows for right now, which is, I think, pretty cool.
It is. If you get a chance, definitely go check out Bodies. It's worth seeing. I really enjoyed going through that. And 2, if you guys go on the high roller, my advice is go when the sun is setting, because then you see the sunset, but you also see the Las Vegas lights turn on. So you get that beautiful Las Vegas lights with the sun setting, and you're up there on the high roller, and you're at the very top, so you could see everything. It's the perfect time to go.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to try that. I mean, I am amazed all the time. No matter how often I come to Vegas, there's always something I don't get to, or multiple things. It's just, I mean, part of it is also I enjoy the recreational gambling, and there's usually somebody to meet up with, and it always seems like there's never enough time. And even now, I mean, I know these are such tricky times with COVID, and the number one question I get asked is, should I go to Vegas or shouldn't I? And I usually say, well, that's a personal choice. But I said, if you set your expectations right, I think now is the best time ever to do solo trips to Las Vegas. We're not meeting up with people, where you're just spending time by yourself, like a me trip. So where you could just gamble by yourself, go to the spa, take really nice walks, have a nice dinner. And I really enjoy that. Like, I enjoy that kind of thing. And if you enjoy that or have ever considered that, I think now's a really good time to go to Vegas because it's pretty quiet. So, I mean, as long as you don't want hustle and bustle, and it doesn't bother you being mostly with yourself, which I happen to really enjoy, I think it's an okay time to go, and that's what I've said to a lot of people. I don't know about your opinion on that, because I do think mixing with people is really difficult right now. And it's hard to be like, one of the things I used to think was amazing at Vegas is you could go to a bar or you'd be somewhere and people would start talking to you. And now you're very uncomfortable, even wearing your mask properly and all of that. I mean, it is uncomfortable being around people who you don't know, but I think if you're willing to be by yourself, you can have a really good time.
Well, one thing to point out too, like you said, this is COVID, so things are a little crazy right now. Our governor, now people are not going to be seeing this until like a week later, so this is going to be like a week old news. But our governor just announced last night that what they're doing is they lowered the occupancy rate of casinos to 25%. And this is going to go on for 3 weeks. And what a lot of casinos are doing is they're closing Monday through Thursday, and then they're only open like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Another thing too is we have our mask mandate got stronger. So now they want you to wear a mask basically like at all times. If you're indoors, if you're outdoors, anytime you're not like in your home or your room or something, they want you wearing a mask. So also too, like I said, things are changing quickly. COVID's making things change quickly. So before you travel here, it's always good to, double check the Las Vegas Convention Center or the Las Vegas Visitor Center, see what new mandates may have been put into place, see what's going on with the casino closures or what's going on with that, because things are changing constantly over here.
Yeah. And that's one of the things why one of my suggestions to people is that possibly it makes sense just to look further into like Q3 of 2021 if you want, and which is fine because you have something to look forward to. And there are lots of really good travel deals to have.
And it gives you time to save up. So that way you have more like shopping money and gambling money. And, even with COVID, I'm surprised that we still have some things opening. The Venetian just opened up an experience that looked really fun. And then Area 15 just opened up as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I've always been a bit of a less is more kind of person. People are always, like so many of my friends travel so much more than I do. But I actually like fewer trips where, especially on the recreational gambling aspect, where I can have a larger bankroll. I just think it's like I would rather do half the number of trips with a larger bankroll than more frequency of trips. I also happen to like being at home and cooking and doing all those kind of things. So that's part of what.
Wait, did you do sourdough bread?
No,
everyone was doing sourdough bread.
No, but we've done we've done a decent amount of baking and cocktail making and things like that. But it is it's I think I'm so philosophically, I'm a lemonade out of lemons kind of person. So I like to find, like, even now I say, hey, the governor just announced 25% capacity. Yeah, but if you go and you're by yourself and you're not, with a lot not people, it's going to be very not crowded. So
it's definitely not going to be crowded.
Because I was in, even, in SW Steakhouse with 50% occupancy, it's such a different experience than it used to be. Like the bustle isn't there, but definitely there's so much social distancing. So I try to be positive for the circumstance. I think there are some people, it just bothers them more, like if they want it to be the way it was before. And I'm just like, it will be eventually. We just have to accept where we are right now, and like I said to you before, and if that's your mindset, then just plan a trip for Q3 of next year, and that's okay. So getting back to the hotel stuff. So status can be important, your casino status. I'm setting aside, I think it's always important that you review what your player's card, what the portals will allow you. So you should always be, logging into your Caesars account or your M Life account. And you should be comparing your hotel rates, because even if you don't have a Caesars offer, you might have a highly discounted Caesars room rate, bearing that you're part of Caesars rewards. I also think that you should understand some of the reciprocal benefits between programs. So say you're not a casino loyalty person and you have Hyatt status, that actually can transfer over to M Life status. If you have Wyndham Hotel status, that can transfer over to Caesars status. As we know, many of the casino companies are doing status matches between programs, way beyond the scope. Like we could do an entire episode on like status matching and matching to one thing to matching to something else. But these are all things to keep an eye on. These are things that definitely, like in the Zorkcast Facebook group, or I'm happy to always answer individual questions. Obviously, from a casino standpoint, I am very much a fan of targeting your casino programs, like not splitting half of your play between M Life and Caesars, but deciding which company you want to go for and putting most of your play there, because I just think strategically it makes a lot of sense. It's almost the same way I would say to you, if you were looking at like Hilton and Marriott and Hyatt, and you stayed at hotels 150 nights a year, I would say you really should focus on one program. You shouldn't split it between the programs, because in most cases, one thing that's totally true: airline loyalty, hotel loyalty, casino loyalty, top tier or close to top tier is always where you want to be. Now, when I say that with regard to Caesars, I mean like Diamond, not necessarily 7-star, but like Caesars, you want to be Diamond. Hyatt, you want to be Globalist, that kind of thing. Hilton, you want to be Diamond. If you can. Delta, you want to be Diamond, because usually there is a perk differential between the top tier and the one below that makes it advantageous enough to want to do that. So that's a reason why, unless you travel extreme amounts, which you can't right now, that you want to focus, on an individual program.
Okay.
Cool. The other thing is too, and a lot of people don't realize, Vegas is a extremely interesting market with regard to luxury hotels, because a great example I always give is like Four Seasons. You could stay in the Four Seasons in Vegas for as low as like 100, so let's just say 150, 160, $180 a night. A Four Seasons in New York will set you back $400 or $500 a night. In London,
and if you stay at Four Seasons landscaping, that's $25 a night.
Yes, that's true. I forgot about that one. Yeah, that's
Now, before we go on to luxury hotels, because I'm looking forward to that, if you guys are watching this video and you like this video and you want to help support Vegas Aces, then one of the ways you could do so is by going to vegas-aces.com and clicking on one of our affiliate banners. When you sign up for an account through an affiliate link, then our website gets a small commission. If you ever have any problems or disputes, email me, heather@vegas-aces.com, and we will help you through it. Okay, so luxury hotels. So let's hear about that. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, so there are a number of luxury hotel programs. One of the most popular programs is called FHR, which is Fine Hotels and Resorts. That is a product offered only by American Express. The catch is you have to have an American Express Platinum card, which costs $500 a year. Now, you can actually get a lot of benefits out of having an American Express Platinum card, but a lot of people just don't want a credit card that has such a high annual fee for whatever reasons, whether they're rational or not. Part of the problem, I think part of this goes along with, I'm sure you've spoken to casino people with casino loyalty. Like, some people will comp hustle and take advantage of things to the nth degree, and other people just don't want to bother, right? And that's the same way it is with credit cards. There are many credit cards out there that the annual fees sound outrageous, but the benefits you get back, if you travel a certain amount throughout the year, you can get those benefits back, sometimes twofold. So it's not really costing you that much per year, but you also have to work at it, and you have to work at it harder if you don't travel that much. So anyway, these hotel programs are really nifty, because they include, if you book the hotel under these luxury hotel programs, they include a benefit, which is usually $100 food and beverage credit for the stay. And they include, in Vegas, a $60 benefit for breakfast per day, which is quite generous. Now, the thing about it is, that's very interesting. On short stays, this is extremely optimizable, because that $100 credit is for the stay. So if you stay one night at one of these properties, you still get the $100 credit, and you still get the breakfast credit. So in a market like Vegas, where the hotels are not $300, $400, $500, $600 a night, bingo, you've got some amazing opportunities, especially if you wanted to pop between hotels, something I don't love doing. But if you stayed at multiple of these properties, you would get the $100 benefit at each property and the breakfast benefit at each property. But I will tell you the most extreme example, and once again, an example off the top of my head, has been the Delano. Because at the Delano, the room rates under these programs have been $130, $140 a night. So stick with me here. That includes resort fee. So let's call it $150 a night. You pay $150 a night with resort fee, and you get $100 benefit and 60 for breakfast. So basically, it's a wash, you know. So it's absolutely, and some of them have been even better than that. So there's a program called Virtuoso, which is just like Fine Hotels and Resorts, which can be booked by any Virtuoso travel agent. There are a lot of good Virtuoso travel agents. It has to be booked by the travel agents. TravelZork actually is now doing those types of bookings, and I'm going to be doing them along with Las Vegas Advisor. We're setting up a program for them, and you can put the link, but I have a booking request on TravelZork where we can quote you on some of those. And what's really cool about these Virtuoso hotel bookings is that most of them have no deposit and most of them can be canceled like the day before. So it's awesome. So because basically it's a traditional, what I would call it, it's a traditional way when a travel agent books a hotel for you is you pay a checkout. That's the traditional way for it to be. Now Vegas has varied a little bit. Vegas has sometimes done one night hotel deposit and stuff, but most of the rates seem to not have that, which is also really nice because once again you can change and rearrange. But these programs can be really beneficial, and then it gets better because you get some additional amenities. And I tested this in June because I just needed to see if I could get the stars to align. And I did, because you get an upgrade benefit, you get early check-in and late checkout benefit, which is really nice. And I did it at, once again, this is all like off the top of my head, but I did one of these deals for Wynn, and certain times of the year, not only do you get all these benefits, but they have a buy 2 nights, get 1 free. So I managed to do a Wynn stay midweek with a buy 2, get 1 free. And I got really lucky. And I'm going to say this again, I got really lucky. And they upgraded me to a parlor suite as my upgrade, and my actual cost per night, if you took in account the breakfast benefit and all that kind of stuff, turned out to be like $85 a night. It was crazy. But part of this is what you value. Like I really like the $60 benefit a day is amazing at Wynn because you can use it for breakfast at Tableau, which is so nice. I mean, if you like that, but this is, it depends who you speak to. Like I love those beautiful hotel breakfasts in Vegas. Other people, like, to them, that's not a priority. They rather grab a Dunkin', and that's not important. But for me, it's a really nice perk, So I guess it depends who you speak to on that. But also the rates are really pretty good. So that's another thing to look at. It's very unique to the Vegas market because these programs are available in other cities, but except for Asia, you can do really well in Asian cities, like European cities and major US cities. It's, I don't want to call it a disaster, but like, sure, the Four Seasons in London is like $700 a night or $800 a night. So even if there's a buy 2, get 1, it's so expensive that, in comparison to like, you could stay at the Hilton for $150 a night. So there's just such a big spread. Whereas in Vegas, these luxury hotels have, great deals. And these programs, like these Virtuoso and FHR programs, they include Bellagio, they include Delano, they include Wynn, they include Aria. So it's really pretty cool. They mislabel, like they say it's supposed to be all 5-star hotels. I would argue that Delano isn't really a 5-star hotel, and I'm not sure. This is hotel ratings like mean nothing. Like truly to me, a 5-star hotel is something like a Four Seasons or a Mandarin Oriental or maybe Wynn Las Vegas. But I'm not sure, like to me, like Bellagio is probably at this point like 4-star, really strong 4-star hotel. The Waldorf in Vegas probably is more like a 4-star hotel at this point. That doesn't make them bad. I think you just have to be a little bit careful when you're booking a hotel and somebody says, "Oh, I've got this 5-star hotel for you, the Delano," and it's like, well, that's not really a 5-star hotel, but it's a really nice hotel. So I mean, that's
And yeah, you could still have really nice hotels and have them be like 2 stars, 3 stars, and it's still like, oh, this place is pretty nice.
Yeah. Well, Vegas is really special that way because, and that's why foreign travelers love Vegas so much. You get so much bang for your buck. You know, what you get in Vegas, you can't get anywhere else in the world.
We're spoiled.
You
That's
are.
that's why I can't travel anywhere. I have to stay in Las Vegas because I travel somewhere and I'm like, this is a hotel. You guys call this a hotel? Okay. If you say so. I mean, it has rooms, sure.
But it's true. I mean, it's really, I mean, it's amazing. And also, I mean, the ability in Vegas, you know, now that so many hotels have, you know, they used to talk about the $20 trick and the $50 trick, and most hotels now have a buy up program to suites and things like that because they realize that obviously this is a good thing to monetize. Vegas hotels tend to have way more suites than most hotels do, but Vegas hotels are also way larger than most hotels. And a lot of times for an extra 50 or 75 bucks a day, you can upgrade to a suite that you could never imagine upgrading to in another city, which is amazing. And you need to ask about that, even on comp rooms, because almost every hotel has possibilities to do those upgrades. Like at Paris, Las Vegas, even on comp rooms, if a host won't authorize a complimentary upgrade to a suite upgrades start at like 50 bucks there. That's like really good. And if you're like Diamond and you've got a comp room or a heavily discounted room and you're not paying the resort fee, to pay another 50 bucks to have a nice suite with your girlfriend or your wife. I mean, you're not getting this kind of value anywhere, you know? I mean, so I can't have, you know, this is one of the things that people, you know, people really like. Also, just stepping back to the airfare thing for 1 second. Our airfare discussion was very much for people living in the US, you know, in the US market. For people outside of the US, especially like in the UK, lots of people from the United Kingdom like to come to Vegas. It shifts a little bit, but you also have to be aware of the pricing in the markets. But there, a bigger difference becomes the premium airfares. And like today, for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which will still be going on. Like Virgin is like, they are selling business class seats for slightly more than economy class seats to the States in these Black Friday sales. So that stuff is amazing. So there are different opportunities. And this is one of the things what I pride myself in because I understand like the European traveling to Vegas market as well as the US domestic. And it is different. When you should use points or not use points is different. And also the way you look at airfares. Also, like a lot of people, like we were talking about, like, oh, buy up to first class, it's only 200 more. Just like the conversation about breakfast, some people will say, well, that's 200 I could gamble with. It's not worth it for me. The flight's only 3 hours, but a flight from London, even, nonstop is 10 and a half hours. So, and overnight flight back is 10 and a half, one's 11 hours and one is 10 and a half. So now the equation of being in economy class as opposed to premium economy or business is a lot different than a flight from Minneapolis. So, I mean, that goes back to my whole, like, a lot of it depends on where you're flying from and all of that kind of stuff. But it's great. It's great stuff to look at.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Now, before we go on, just a quick reminder to people who are watching, Vegas Aces is supported by viewers like you. Donations make it possible for us to bring you all of these videos for free. If you feel that this video is worth more than $0, please donate the amount you feel it's worth by clicking the link in the description below. Okay, so I think we are on to car rentals, right?
Yeah, I hate car rentals. Car
rentals are tough.
They really are. And they've got so many fees and there is nothing. I think everybody that you speak to in like the travel world always hates car. There's nobody who likes car rentals. But my biggest advice on car rentals is you've got to do your comparisons. There is a website called AutoSlash that compares and will keep comparing the car rental rates, because one of the advantages with car rentals is that most of them can be canceled for free. So there isn't an issue with canceling car rentals. Car rentals becomes one of those exceptions, or maybe not exception. You do not want to leave your car rental to the last minute because car rental prices can skyrocket right before a trip. This is, of course, often done by me when I realize at the last minute I need a car rental, but it's really good if you think even there's a 50% chance that you might need a car and you're booking something in 8 months from now. It's really sharp to book a refundable car rental and use something like AutoSlash to keep comparing it. And then like just have your alerts set up to cancel things if you're not going to use them. The other big thing is car rental insurance. You want to have a credit card that allows you to decline all of those yucky charges. That's really important because that could save you a lot. Even like the number one like entry card for miles and points people, the Chase Sapphire Preferred, mostly because it has a nice bonus. It's right now at 60,000 points, but it's got a nice bonus and it includes car rental insurance, and the annual fee is super low. It's only $95 a year. The Chase Sapphire Preferred is a great card, but what's especially great about it is not only does it include car rental insurance, it includes what they call primary car rental insurance. And while I'm not a car rental insurance expert, what that means is that you don't need to submit it to your own car rental insurance company. If you have car rental insurance first, they can cover it. They can cover it outside of that. So that's a really good benefit. You should definitely have a car with car rental insurance. If you do have a credit card with car rental insurance, please make sure that the booking for the car rental is made with that credit card and you use that credit card when you swipe and pick up the card, just to make sure everything's kosher. But that's to me, that insurance can be $10, $20, $30 a day. And that's significant. So also be aware, no problem at all with waiving the stuff for Vegas with regard to car rental insurance. Globally, you need to understand the market. Like there are certain markets, if you rent cars, that you can't waive the car rental insurance or they might insist on it. I think Italy is one of those markets and different. So just be aware that it's not the same everywhere. But for US domestic travel, it's really good to have a credit card that saves you the car rental insurance fees. So that's something to keep in mind.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And
now,
then, go ahead.
Yeah. So that brings us to probably the topic that we could spend a couple of hours on, which is using miles and points, understanding miles and points, getting free tickets, because everybody always hears about all of their friends who get free tickets, and they get very jealous about that. And they want to know how they could get free tickets too. I'm sure you hear when you fly on an airline, they say, get our credit card and you'll immediately get free tickets. And it's not really that true. I mean, it's not that seamless. So the biggest thing that I like to discuss with people is, if they're not miles and points people, is understanding the difference between having points in one program or having what I call an award currency. So if you have a Delta credit card and fly on Delta, both the Delta credit card and flying on Delta earn you Delta Sky Miles. You then can use Delta Sky Miles for flights. That's great. But what if you don't want to fly on Delta and you've accumulated 300,000 Sky Miles? That can be problematic if you want to take a flight on United. So one of the things that I suggest to people, the reason why you are loyal to a specific airline is usually because you fly on that airline often, or you live in a city that requires you to fly on that airline often. So if you live in a city like Minneapolis, that's a Delta city, and you travel a bunch for business and you want to fly nonstop, chances are 90% of the time you're going to be flying nonstop on Delta. If you live in Dallas, you're probably going to be flying on American a lot. So a lot of those decisions are made, depending on how much you travel. If you're 100% leisure traveler, it tends to be better for you to be a free agent and just fly with the airline that is the least expensive. So the way to make miles and points really work for you is to accumulate them in a miles and points currency, like Ultimate Rewards, which is Chase's currency, or Membership Rewards, for example, which is American Express's currency. Capital One also has their own currency. I tend to favor membership rewards and Chase Ultimate rewards because they are the most flexible and they also tend to have bonuses. So what happens is, sticking with the Chase example, you accumulate these Chase Ultimate rewards points, and then you can use those Chase Ultimate rewards points to buy things, often a bad idea, or you could use them to pay for travel. Sometimes an okay idea, sometimes not an okay idea. Or
can't you do like cash too?
Yes, often not that great of a value. You see, because you know what the problem is? What you're trying to do is you're trying to get outsized value. So if they'll give you 1.25 cents, to do it, what you want to do is you want to redeem and use it for something where you're getting 3 or 4 cents per mile. And you can sometimes do that, sometimes you can't, or at least you want 2 or 3 cents. So one of the best ways you could do that is you could transfer to other programs. So like the Chase program, the Chase program allows you to transfer to United, allows you to transfer to British Airways, allows you to transfer to Virgin. The American Express program allows you to transfer to Delta. So here's the amazing thing. You've got these membership rewards points. If you decide you want to fly on Delta, that's fine. You could just transfer them to Delta and then redeem your reward. Or you could use them for something else. It's also brilliant for topping off accounts. Like say you need a few more Hilton points for an award or a few more Marriott points for an award. That's where these transfer programs can become also very, very valuable. But in most cases, and I hate to talk generally, airfare and premium airfare can be the most valuable use of points. Sadly, or not sadly, depending on how you travel, the best use of points is for international premium airfares just because they are so expensive. So, using 70,000 points for a business class air ticket that would cost $3,000 is a great use of points. The only problem is if you're not really interested in a business class ticket to Thailand, it's not going to be really helpful for you. But it is, points can be amazing. Like, to give you an example, I was recently looking at awards from Palm Springs back to Boston for the kids, and American Airlines now has tickets as low as 12,000 miles. And all the airlines have all of these really low awards available, which was never the case before. So it's a really good thing to look at. Part of the game is also credit card bonuses with that kind of thing. So remember, before I was saying if you sign up for a Chase Sapphire Preferred, you get a bonus of 60,000 points. Well, that's 60,000 points that can be transferred to an airline. Well, if that airline has tickets for 10,000 or 15,000, and also the transfer ratios do sometimes vary and sometimes they don't. A lot of times they're 1-to-1. Sometimes they're not 1-to-1, depending on what the program is. You got to pay close attention to that. In most cases, transferring to airlines is a better deal than hotels. For hotels, some of the hotels are a better deal than other hotels. I always feel bad saying this because people want to hear, simplicity, but transferring from Chase to Hyatt can be really, really good. Transferring from Chase to IHG or Holiday Inn is really, really bad. And I know you're like, oh man, this is but there is that nuance. That's why, but there's so many Facebook groups and ways you can learn about it, and you just take it one step at a time. But there are not a lot of hard and fast rules. But what you need to look at is, should I use points? Well, that's a good question. How do you think about that? Just convert it in your head like you would anything else. So if I'm about to get an airline ticket from Palm Springs to Boston and they want 12,000 miles on American to do that, I have to say, okay, now what does it cost me to buy an airline ticket in that market? If it costs me $50, then that's probably not a great use of the 10,000 miles. If the airline ticket costs $600, it is a really good use. So you need to sort of compare, what would this cost me and what are my points worth? So for most points, I think they're worth a cent a point. is I use that in general. So that's how you compare. If you've got 60,000 points, what are they worth? And if you use a cent a point, you come up with a value. And if the value you're getting for the award is way higher than that. And there actually are different values that people have done, but I usually like, for most airlines, a cent or a cent 0.25 a point is fine, but it doesn't have to be so mysterious if you just turn it into math, like everything else. Like, what is this 60,000 points worth? Okay, should I buy something? Should I buy the airline ticket or use my points? And then the other issue is, of course, cash flow can be part of the issue. There are people who accumulate points. The best way to accumulate points is what I call OPM, other people's money. I.e., fly on business, your company pays for the flights and you accumulate points. That's perfect because it's not costing you any of your own money to do that. So in that case, somebody might have a lot of points from their business travel and they might not use them always optimized because they've got so many points. And from a cash flow standpoint, they rather use their points than pay cash. But for a lot of people who are leisure travelers or doing credit card bonuses, they want to be really cautious how they use those points. You want to use them the best way that you possibly can because you're not replenishing them as much as like a road warrior business traveler, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. So if people are really interested in more information, can you again, please tell them your website, where they can find you on YouTube, on social media, on everything like that, because you guys have so much information.
Sure. TravelZork at travelzork.com. Also join the TravelZork Facebook group. I'd love it if you join our YouTube channel. We actually need to do some educational videos. Also, the miles and points person who I feel educates everyone really, really well is Gilbert of God Save the Points. He's a buddy of mine. He does a phenomenal job educating people on these things. Also, there's another guy, Dave of Miles Talk. He does a really good job on that stuff. These guys go really deep. And there are a lot of other miles and points sites, but these are two that that are very popular. I also really like Gary of View from the Wing and Ben of 1 Mile at a Time, but they're a little bit more, they can be a little bit deeper and a little more niche. Also, I have to mention this because it was in my notes. I don't want to forget. Sometimes you need to think out of the box with miles and points. So a lot of people will say, well, I've got these Chase points, but I can't transfer them to the airline I have. And it's like, oh, yes, you can. Chase doesn't transfer to Delta, but Chase transfers to Virgin. And on Virgin, you can book Delta. So yeah, once again, and it's the same thing with British Airways. Chase transfers to British Airways. And right now, if you've got Chase points, they have a 30% bonus when you transfer. So if you transfer 100,000 Chase points, you get 130,000 Avios. Avios on British Airways are great to use for American Airlines, US domestic, like Philly to Vegas nonstop and stuff like that. Really good reward redemptions. So there's just so much there's so many interesting tricks and nuance there, because you would regularly say, like, what would I have any use for British Airways Avios or Virgin Atlantic? It's like, because there's some of the best ways to book US domestic awards, and people don't think about that. So definitely, just dance into it slowly. If you don't already have one credit card, that's a good, miles and points credit card. We talk about this stuff on LVA Travel. I'm sure Heather will put a link into an article that we have about the Chase Sapphire Preferred. That's a good place to start. Start to think about your strategies of, like, is it worth it for me to only fly on one airline, or things like that. Learn the airfares for your market, all that kind of stuff, and, of course, ask questions, because that's how you learn. I love answering those questions. And what's really good, like even in the TravelZork Facebook group, there are so many people that are jump on answering a question. If you ask it, like, don't be embarrassed. Everyone has to start somewhere. Like I'm often embarrassed to say, I was obsessed with this since I was 12 years old. And since I'm like semi-old, that was in 1982. I was like, as a kid, I was obsessed with like booking airfares and travel and miles and points, and right when the program. So I've been doing this for so long and looking at it. But there's so many people in all of these Facebook groups that, the Miles Talk also has a really good Facebook group. There are so many people in all of these Facebook groups that want to be helpful to you on this, and just take it slowly, and find a time next year that you can book a trip for, something to look forward to, because we all need things to look forward to. So I think it's really good, just find a time that you think you'll be comfortable, and book that special vacation and start dreaming about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on and for sharing your wisdom and everything. And thank you, everyone, for watching this show. Really do appreciate it. Please join us on our next live stream. We normally have a live stream every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, this is Heather Ferris and Michael Trager with Vegas Aces, reminding you, education can change the world. I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you again. Bye.
Bye.